teachers and parents began to discuss whether we would still make our planned trip to New York in early October. I was a tenor in my suburban high school's audition choir, and each year the choir sang in the Earth Mass at St. John the Divine, an Episcopal cathedral in the Morningside Heights neighborhood of Upper Manhattan. St. John the Divine is made of granite and limestone, and its design, a mix of Gothic Revival and Romanesque, effectively communicates the heaviness of its materials. It is one of the largest cathedrals in the world. Inside, it is gray and dim, overwhelming, a little inelegant. The nave's thick pillars stretch up into the cathedral's cool, damp air, and if the sun comes out in the afternoon, it shines through the stained glass rose window that sits over the main entrance, turning the air inside the color of violets. It sits far uptown, 7 miles away from Ground Zero, but parents worried about allowing their kids to make the trip. Who could be certain the city was safe? The weekend's plans would have us trekking through Penn Station, riding on the subway, and seeing a show near Times Square, all plausible targets for another attack. The choir director and a group of parents met a few times and made a decision. The trip would go on as planned, with a caveat that any parents who wanted to keep their child at home that weekend should feel free to do so. Mom and Dad told me I could go, so long as I didn't try to get near Ground Zero. This instruction confused me. It hadn't quite occurred to me that Ground Zero was an actual place, nor that I could just walk up to it if I wanted to. I promised that I would stay uptown. We left early on a Saturday morning, the students and the choir director and half a dozen parent chaperones all meeting at the modest commuter rail station in Swarthmore, a fieldstone building with a canopy over the platform and a liberal arts college setting up the hill. The clattering little SEPTA train that shuttled us into Philadelphia's 30th Street station was familiar to me, but I had never been on the Amtrak before. The seats were cushioned, the lights were soft, and whatever noise the train made churning out of Philadelphia and into New Jersey barely penetrated the hushed interior. I heard there was a dining car toward the front of the train and got out of my seat. On my way, I paused in the vestibules that separated the cars, listening to the racket and feeling cool air flying through the gaps. My parents were getting farther away with each rhythmic thump of the tracks. I bought a muffin and ate it standing up before heading back to my seat. There were about 60 of us in the choir. Heading uptown on the subway, we hugged our sleeping bags and swayed back and forth, reached out too late for poles as the train lurched forward or shuddered to a halt, stumbled and fell into one another, annoyed the locals with our hysterics. We got out at 110th Street and walked east, passing within a few blocks of a Greek restaurant where I'd often come for lunch as a freelancer 15 years later. We filed back along the south side of the cathedral until a small stairway led us down underneath an enormous, crude flying buttress. The basement looked just like a school, with linoleum flooring, clanking radiators, and tumbling mats in the gymnasium for us to sleep on. We piled our things into a storage closet. It was 11 in the morning. The choir director told us to be back upstairs for rehearsal at 3 in the afternoon. We could spend the next few hours however we liked, and the chaperones would not be coming with us. The adults needed a break. I had never been so unsupervised in my life. I was aware of this at the time, and the feeling was exhilarating. Adults think that children want to be left alone so that they can get away with doing things they aren't supposed to, but that's not unique to children. Adults like large crowds and business trips and late nights for the same reason. Teenagers also want to be left alone so that they can move through the world without an intermediary guiding and interpreting and nudging them at every turn. I left the cathedral with 3 friends. We hadn't known this time would be